This is Radiant Voices Media.
Welcome to the Paths We Take podcast. I'm your host, Jordan DeSange. Let's hit a path. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of The Paths We Take. And if this is your first time listening, huge welcome. It's great to have you here. Today's episode is a little bit different from the usual format. Instead of one full conversation with a single guest, we're diving into 7 powerful lessons that endurance sport can teach us all. These lessons are pulled from some of the most impactful moments and most listened to episodes on endurance sport through the past 6 years of the podcast. These are conversations with athletes, whether it be amateur athletes, pro athletes, Olympians, and just people who have used endurance sport to push themselves both physically and mentally. Now, endurance sport is something we talk about quite a bit on this podcast, but it's definitely not the only thing we cover here. We talk about a lot of different topics around growth, mindset, people's lived experiences. So if you are listening and you are not a runner or a triathlete or an endurance athlete by any means, that's completely okay. I think these lessons come out of endurance sport, but they can go far beyond running a marathon or finishing a race. They're lessons about resilience, about patience, about disciplined community, and learning how to keep moving forward when things get difficult. And those are things that can apply to absolutely anything in life, whether it be work, whether it be relationships, personal growth, or whatever challenges you might be facing. So in this episode, we're going to explore 7 key lessons that endurance sport can teach us all. And you'll hear directly from some of the guests who have shared their experiences on the show. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. And if you hear a clip or story that resonates with you, I definitely recommend going back and listening to that full episode, sharing it on Instagram or your socials so that others can hopefully resonate as well. And just again, these conversations are packed with insights, stories, and lessons that are well worth a deeper listen. If you've been tuning in for a while now, thank you for being here and for supporting the podcast. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, let's jump into lesson number 1 about complacency. One thing endurance sport teaches us very quickly is that you can't afford to become too comfortable. Just because you've completed an event before, whether that's a marathon, a triathlon, or even an Ironman, it doesn't mean the next one will automatically take care of itself. Preparation still matters, training still matters, and small details still matter. But this isn't just a lesson for endurance sport. It's something that applies to all areas of life. At times, we all get a little bit comfortable. And we get comfortable where we are. We ease off intensity, and sometimes we stop paying attention to the small habits that help us get there in the first place. And for some people, that might be completely fine. But if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are somebody that wants to keep improving, keep growing, and keep pushing yourself to achieve more. And for people like that, complacency can quietly hold you back from reaching that next level. In this clip, Anthony talks about that exactly. How easy it is to become complacent when you've done an event before and why you still need to respect the process every time you line up for a race. He touches on something that a lot of athletes also overlook, which is nutrition. In Ironman especially, nutrition is often called the 4th discipline because if you don't get that part right, it can completely derail your race. Here is Anthony talking about why complacency, especially around training and nutrition, can catch athletes out. I'm interested, breaking down, let's stay on topic with Ironman first. That first Ironman to that second one, what did you learn and what did you do differently training for that second one?
Um, I knew the course, definitely knew the course better. I knew the headwinds were going to be there. So it's that mental preparedness that you know what's coming. Um, interestingly enough, though, I didn't train as well. I think I was a little bit more complacent, which was I've learned that now. You know, these long distance things, you just can't be complacent. Yeah, they'll bite you in the back. Nutrition was definitely better, but I also think because I didn't know what I was getting in for originally, I gave it better thought and I'd used my history of training to get me through. So yeah, I think my first Ironman was my best one so far. It's definitely not a job done. I want to go back and do better and you know put everything that I've learned to use. But yeah, I did 2 Cairns and then I've done a Bustleton. Cairns, I kind of feel like I've got unfinished business there. I want to get a little bit faster and it suits me as well. So.
Okay. What does a Monday to Monday look like for you when you're training for an Ironman specifically? Because I think a lot of people don't quite like the distance is a massive distance that you have to cover, and it's 3 activities. And I think people out there that might be a marathon runner and don't really follow Ironman and follow triathlon might not fully grasp like the dedication, the time it takes sometimes. So what did it look like for you, I guess?
I joined a swim squad. Oh, I think that's really important. To try and do swimming by yourself is really hard. Biking and running, yes, you can do that yourself if you've got the regiment, etc. So for me, I use a lot of my daily commute to and from work as part of my training structure. So yeah, 3 swim squads a week is probably, if you want to be reasonably comfortable in the water to get through if you have rougher conditions or you're trying to battle a current, you've got to give it the due justice there. For the bike, it's a mix of a bit of terrain, depending on which course you're going into, because you've got to be able to handle those headwinds. If you're just doing outer harbour loops, it's all good, but that one day that you're trying to go through a little bit of rolling hill and you've got a headwind and it's raining or something, so you need to train for that condition. Running, again, I use my commute, so I try and do a couple of long easy runs. And then the weekend is where you do your more specific training. So, you're going to target a bit of tempo work, or is it a bit of hill work or whatever. That's where I kind of get into it. But in terms of hours per week, 12 to 16 hours a week for me was sort of a reasonable number. Like marathon, you don't go and run a marathon as part of your training. You tend to do sort of that 20 to 30K range. You got to do a little bit of length to practice your nutrition, so that when you can feel that energy level starting to drop and like, okay, how do I dig myself out of this hole? What nutrition's going to work for me on the day? Because if you don't do the long distance, then you don't know what's going to work. But then also, I spent a lot of time prior to Ironman when I did the 24-hour road races, really figuring out and dialing in what my protein tolerance was. So as well as getting a carb target, I had a sports nutritionist who gave me a protein target. And the first 24-hour I tried that and it just failed miserably. And so I spent about 3 months just out at night doing long distance and trying to figure it out. And now that I know that protein target, like it doesn't really vary much. So now I can work that into my normal structure. So, yes, you got the 3 disciplines as part of your Ironman training, but it really is nutrition as the 4th discipline, as they say.
Let's move on to lesson number 2. And one that is about preparation and seeing the bigger picture sometimes. Sometimes in endurance sport, and honestly life as well, we become so focused on one goal, we forget to prepare for other things as well. We put all of our energy into reaching a milestone, qualifying for an event, getting the opportunity, landing a role, hitting that big target, but Achieving the goal often is just that first step, not the finish line. In this clip, Matt Clark talks about his experience with the Olympics. He had a very unique experience qualifying for his first Olympics, and he admits that his mindset wasn't exactly right during that first Olympics. He learned something from that experience that was incredibly powerful. That second time around, he realized that it wasn't enough just to focus on qualifying for the Olympics. He actually needed to prepare for performing there as well. It meant shifting his mindset, thinking further ahead, and recognizing that sometimes you need multiple goals rather than just one. Because if you only focus on reaching the door, you might not be ready for what's waiting on the other side sometimes. Here is Matt sharing his experience. Now, when you were leading up to the Olympics and your first Olympics, what was running through your mind? Like, when you got that call or the whatever it was to say that you're going to the Olympics, what was running through your mind then versus, when you were actually in Tokyo?
Yeah. So I reckon I don't know anyone else who's ever gone through it. It could be the most unique experience.
Okay.
So I initially got told I didn't make it.
Ah.
So I finished because I missed the qualifier. I missed it by 0.13.
Yeah.
It was based on rankings.
Right. Okay.
And initially I was out of the rankings by one spot.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I got an email saying like, you have not been selected for the Olympics. And I was just like, well, and I knew that was coming because you can see it publicly listed.
Yeah.
And then I woke up the next morning and my coach said, there might be a chance we've heard the British athlete's not getting selected. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess we better tell like Athletics Australia, Australian Athletics now. And so we told them, and then they gave me a call. They're like, look, that's correct from what we've heard, but like there's a bit of an admin kind of period, and they have to get taken out a certain amount of time, and that athlete's put in an appeal because he feels like obviously you don't want your dream to be taken away kind of thing. So of course he's appealing with everything he can. And so he did that, and then they said this is kind of like the deadline for when it has to be done by, and we'll give you a call regardless at the end or how it goes. That time came around and I haven't heard anything yet. Yeah. And so when I got the call, I was expecting it to be like, hey, obviously the deadline's up. Like, this sucks for you, but this is just the end. All the best for the future. And I got a call from Andrew Fake, who's the head of high performance at Athletics Australia, and he says, hey, Matt, how you feeling? And I was like, I'm a bit flat. It's been a pretty long week. And he goes, oh, well, you better spike yourself up, mate, because you've got an Olympics to prepare for.
Oh, wow.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I was not expecting it at all. And I just remember just being speechless. I was like, thanks. And I just hung up the phone. I couldn't say anything else kind of thing. And I was with my now wife at the time. Walked in, told her, she just started crying. Like, it was just like this weird like dream situation. And we kind of, I guess, gave ourselves like that night to celebrate and enjoy it. Then after that, it was just about switching on, getting ready again. For the biggest event of my life at that point. And then I guess that was actually pretty tough on reflection. Not I guess tough from a traumatic point of view by any means. Like, it was still awesome. I was having a great time. But it was tough to stay, I think, switched on and focused because I'd put so much energy into qualifying. And then I think I nearly started processing that was the end. And so then I had to really work hard to like shift my focus into being like, okay, this isn't the end. You've actually got another step to go. And I just remember like the actual Olympics itself probably being a bit, I guess, overwhelming per se. I had a great time. But I think I just took it a bit too much. Like, I was just a bit like, oh, cool, there's so many like fantastic athletes here. There's so many good athletes in my race. There's so many athletes in my race. That's not what I'm actually used to because everything I'd done was time trialing leading into that. And I think I just made a lot of just poor decisions in the race tactically. And then probably didn't have the race that I really wanted kind of thing. But nonetheless, like, I think like I still got there kind of thing. Absolutely. And so that was something that I looked back on and thought like, box ticked at the end of the day.
Right.
Sort of thing.
So then where did things go for your second Olympics? Like where did you have time off and then, set a plan or new plan, or what was the goal coming out of Tokyo?
Much more straightforward. So we learned from that to, okay, we need to prep for it, not prep for qualifying for it. And there was still the process of qualifying. I started off the season pretty average actually last year, but then turned it around. I think we got fit at the right time, won nationals. And then from there, just every race was like a slightly bigger progression. And that's what we're aiming for. We're like, okay, we can't peak before the Olympics because that's what we did last time. And then we went in, like, fizzled, basically. And that's what I did World Champs the year before as well. Like, I'd peaked way too early, and then I was hanging on by a thread, and I was just in cactus form by the time World Champs rolled around. Whereas for the Olympics, I think we were so dialed in our mistakes. Like, the season, like, after, like, nationals and after was just going perfect. I was the fittest I'd ever been. I was getting fitter. I thought I'd kind of reached my peak, and then, like, I'd do more training sessions, like, gosh, I didn't even try, and I'm hitting these splits. And then we'd go to another race, and I'd run faster. Like, I'd break the state record that I'd never been able to do before. Like, I was smashing people who should be, like, closer around me. And everything was going super right. And then I got smacked with the flu just before I was meant to leave. So just under 4 weeks out from the Olympics. And I was just so sick from it. And so then it was just a matter of trying to put the pieces back together as much as I could. And I think I did my best from a psychological point of view. But like when race day rolled around, like by the time I probably got halfway into the race, like my lungs were just cactus. And like chatting to the doctor afterwards, he goes, with the amount of like blood and like just guck you're coughing up from your lungs, he goes, that's effectively where your gas exchange happens. So you probably didn't really have too much of a chance going into that race, which was a bit disappointing because I feel like we'd finally cracked the code, done it all right, learnt from our mistakes, and chatting to my sports psych leading into it, I said, if everything goes perfect, I think I can probably run an 8:12 steeplechase, crack that Oz record, be at least competitive for the final if things fell in my favour. And like how I felt just from like a body point of view, like that first K going through in 2:44, like it felt relaxed. Like that was the pace we were training at. That's on for about that. So it was just disappointing that the lungs and the system just weren't in a place to kind of support that. But overall, I mean, you just get unlucky with those things. Like, and I think the way my mind ticks is, if you leave every stone unturned, you can't be disappointed. And so I feel like even though I wish objectively I'd come out with a better result from it, we learned perfectly from like my experience leading into it. And I think we did everything right, and you can't control everything sometimes. That's part of sport. It's unpredictable.
Now, let's move on to lesson number 3. This lesson is about resilience and finding something that helps you keep moving forwards even during difficult times. In endurance sport, there are moments where things get really hard, physically and mentally. But sometimes the lessons we learn through sport actually come from challenges that happen outside of it. In this clip, David shares the experience of receiving a life-changing diagnosis and how that moment completely shifted his perspective. It's one of those moments where everything can suddenly feel uncertain and you're forced to rethink what really matters and what can get you through. What's powerful about David's story is how he found running during that time. Running became something that helped him process what he was going through, gave him the sense of control, and helped him move forwards when things felt overwhelming. And again, this is something that goes far beyond just endurance sport. We all face challenges at different points in life, and often it's the habits, communities, or activities we learn on that help us navigate these difficult moments. Here is David's path.
Essentially, maybe if you don't mind getting into like the diagnosis for people out there that might be something similar, because it's interesting that you were in another country with that diagnosis. What was all of that like? Because that can be isolating, like you were saying, and quite difficult. But how did that all kind of come to be?
So it was basically with work and things like that, I just noticed like it was a simple thing like running for the bus and being able to take off and stuff like that. Like as I said, like naturally, like growing up, it was like maybe I had this accident in the background and stuff like that, but it wasn't really prominent. And it was, yeah, as I said, like running for the bus, like being able to like explode off and things like that, and just little things like tremors in my hands and things like that. And I was like, okay, I need to see a doctor, so I got like an MRI scan, and it went from there. So I got diagnosed with that, and it was kind of funny because it was like, yeah, I got that in the UK, and I was like, when it happened at the time, I was like, okay, what the hell was this? So I was like, I never really heard of it before, and it was like, it was it is a rare condition and stuff like that. And the biggest thing is there's no actual like cure or medication I can take for it. So, and that was, yeah, I was like, okay, so naturally, when you get something like that, you're just like, okay, what's there must be a way around it. How do I make myself better and stuff like that? And I was like, okay, I can't really in the natural sense of thinking. So, and that's when I was like, okay, all right, I have to. When I came back to Australia, I got like a second diagnosis just to like confirm what I was, what I've been told and things like that. So, yeah. And then it was confirmed, and I was like, okay, all right, what do I do from here? So, yeah.
Yeah, because that's, I guess, like when you're in the conventional space, and they tell you that there's no cure or anything like that. Like, I assume that you've had to do a lot of your own research and a lot of your own kind of development there. What was your kind of journey like from that point? Like, what kind of things did you have to look into and look at?
It was a poisonous thing because it's like, yeah, like Dr. Google and stuff like that. It's like, yeah. So like you see all these doom stories and stuff, like you just have to do your own research on like Google and stuff like that. So but yeah, there wasn't, I mean there was, in terms of like there was a, I guess, a charity and stuff like that in the UK, but there's not so much support in Australia with things like that. So conversely, I mean, got support with your family and friends and things like that, but you don't really have like people that are in the same boat as much in Australia. So obviously, because Australia's not as much as big a population as say UK or America or anything. So
Right.
yeah,
So it is that rare then.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
strange.
Lucky me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Wow. Okay. So what? Like you were saying that you found running after that. Was that correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my I guess because there was no direct cure or like medication I could take, I was like, hey, what's the way I can kind of like stave off this and condition and such? And I found like physical exercise and running and things like that were like a big thing for me. So I was like, yeah. So that was the natural progression because I was like, yeah, sporty as a kid and things like that. And growing up, and I was like, okay, that's kind of like team sports has been taken away, I guess, for me. So I was like, the natural progression was like towards running and stuff like that to keep myself fit and active.
Right.
Now, up to lesson 4. And this one is about running your own race, both literally and figuratively. In endurance sport, it's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others. Maybe someone else is faster, stronger, or running longer distances, but the truth is your journey is your own. In this clip, Don shares how running doesn't have to be about hitting a marathon or competing against anyone else. You don't need to compare yourself to others to be a runner. You don't need to run a marathon to be a runner. You don't need to be running all of these extravagant distances at an extremely fast pace. Every run, every effort, every step counts, and it's your personal growth that matters the most. This lesson isn't just for runners. In life, it's easy to look around and feel like you're not measuring up. But the only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Progress is personal, and success looks different on everyone. Here is Dawn and her perspective.
Like, somebody has achieved a massive goal like running a marathon, and then it's kind of like, well, now what? I think sometimes events or, you know, all of these challenges that people are putting out there in the world are amazing, but people too then are I think hyper focusing, that's becoming their identity, and then they're losing the sight that, oh, I just did an amazing thing, I just ran a marathon, like I need to do something more next time, right? Like I think that's also for me maybe part of it, and something that I've realized, like when I did the 777, like the 7 marathons, I really, like, for the first year after that, that's a lie, I did Gold Coast Marathon after that, for a while, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't wanna do another marathon, like,
Yeah,
I've just
correct.
done 7 in 7 days, like,
Yeah.
blah, 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 like,
How do I
it's
beat
nothing."
that? Yeah.
Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
I think, like, I couldn't think of it like that as well, because, like, that also doesn't do well with your purpose and with your drive going forwards as well. Like, I could sit here and be like, oh, well, I need to do 50K now, or they're like, I need to do 100K now. And I think like things are getting lost in that space as well. Like, we don't necessarily need to level up, the last thing that we've done, or level up what somebody else has done, or whatever like that. I think like sitting there reflecting and like sitting in your own experience is quite
Yes.
important to begin with, basically.
Absolutely. You are absolutely spot on. I think it is one of those, we chase PBs, don't we? And we chase, we chase doing things bigger and better. It's a natural human nature. And I absolutely fell into that trap post Queen of Hearts as well. I was like, well, how do I top 200 days around the country and get, breaking a Guinness World Record? But that was completely the wrong question to
Not
ask.
the point. Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
And that I needed some time to, I guess, process that myself before I went, okay, well, why am I doing this? And it was the why, right? So, and I think you need to answer the why, and then that gives you your answer. And I think that's something that we are all guilty of, and it's so evident, what we were talking about before we came on and started recording around, the explosion of running, the explosion of marathons, this whole massive, drive to, you're not a runner unless you've done a marathon. What an absolute load of crap, and it's, and I think that's the one thing that I struggle with is when people are talking to me and they come out and they go, oh, well, it's not the same level as what you've done. Well, don't compare yourself to me.
That language, like I
It
just
just-
ran 10K today, or I just did
it does
this.
my
I
head
hate that.
in.
Yeah.
It's one of the most frustrating things ever. And I'm like, you should never compare yourself to someone else, right? So easy said than done. This is speaking from me. I can definitely hand on heart say that I don't live by that all the time. But I feel like, one thing that I read years ago was don't compare your beginning with my end. And I think it's, especially on a running journey, if you're just starting out in the world of running, why do you want to run a marathon? Why do you want to run 10K? Why do you want to, PB in a 5K park run? So if you can't answer that, then take a breather, man, and start to, what, are you doing, running for your health? Are you doing running to make sure you're around for your kids? Are you, like that's, and I'm very big on asking people, why do you run? And, I did that. I'm very fortunate to get to run with the movement club out there at Festival Tower. And, there's a couple of runners I've been running with the last, 12, 13 weeks. And, they've come such a long way. But, they're both gearing up for, they want to get in and get a half marathon and stuff like that. But their why is really cool. And I think that to me sort of goes, okay, well, they get it. They get it. But I think it's that, I do think, you hit the nail on the head. It's that lived experience. It's that, life experience in general. But, I do worry a little bit about I've just run 10Ks, it's only just. I was like, dude, 10Ks is a lot, eh? And I had to change my language with that, Jordan, like I feel like I downplay some of the stuff that I've done because I don't want people feeling like that as well. I don't want, what they do laugh, I think I read something that said, how do you know someone's run a marathon? They'll tell you, because it's a thing. But I think I don't want to detract from what people are doing. And I think it's really important that, anytime you're starting to feel like you're comparing yourself with someone, just stop, man, and just remind yourself why you're doing it. Do you like getting up in the morning and going for a little wee trot in the beautiful sunshine? Then great. If you want to do it for a PB, knock yourself out. I'm not saying don't do that, but what I'm saying is if that then becomes your core focus and your core being, and I feel like you sort of lose track of your purpose.
Now, in lesson number 5, this one is all about focusing on the journey and the people you share it with. In endurance sport, it's easy to get obsessed with the finishing times, podiums, or personal bests, but what truly makes these experiences meaningful are the connections you build along the way. Steve McKenna shares how you need to have fun and experience it with others, because when you reach the end goal, cross that finish line, win the gold, it's the relationships and memories you've created that really matter. Achieving something alone can feel empty, but sharing the journey turns every victory into something special. This lesson is for anyone chasing a goal, not just athletes. Whether it's work, personal growth, or life, the people you share these journeys with are what make these experiences truly rewarding. Here's Steve's perspective.
Because if you're trying to do anything great, there's not going to be life balance. So I reckon my advice, if I had my time again, would be focus on it being fun more than doing something great. Because I went through the 12 years and the most fulfilling moment was definitely my Ironman win, but it was the embrace with my partner, because we went through a lot of sacrifice together, and my daughter was there and we hugged and cried and like, oh my God, you won one finally. And it was huge, this moment. I nearly tear up just talking about it, everything, but it made me realize it's the connections with people that actually matter. So the goal is not fulfilling. If you achieve it, you're just like, what's next? It's always a stepping stone. So it's about the people, and I still need, this is a takeaway that for me too. I still train alone. I still don't have my group. You have a group. It looks cool. I had a group that I coached. That was really good. That was one of the few best years of my triathlon career, was when I had people to do the training with, and that's so. Yeah, I think just when you're prioritizing doing something great in life, do it with people, and search for balance. There's not going to be balance if you do something great. My advice would be lower the expectations, unless you're because if you are going to truly be great, then you probably can do it with balance sometimes in running or other things, because it doesn't take up all the whole week. If you're in triathlon, I'm sorry, you're screwed. Yeah, that's a tough one to give advice on.
Yeah.
I would say though, get your family involved. Probably don't marry someone who hates triathlon. That would help.
Yeah. Now, in lesson number 6, this is about the power of reflection and finding yourself through movement. Steve shares how when he quit drinking, he found running as a tool to process emotions and reflect on life. Slow runs gave him the space to connect with his feelings, work through challenges, and discover the strength within himself. This lesson isn't just for runners or endurance athletes. Anyone can benefit from finding a practice that lets them slow down, reflect, and reconnect with themselves. Here is Steve's journey.
As you've mentioned a few times, you have goals with running, and being part of that community is helpful for you. What is running for you? What does running mean for you?
It means a lot. I'm extremely grateful for running. So early on, so the 4th of January is when I quit drinking, and it was like the 7th of January when I went for a run, and I went for a run with a friend of mine, Lockie, down at the beach, Social Run Code down in Glenelg, Somerton. What that did was it set me off. It set me off on a new pathway, where that I suppose the collective, the mixture of socializing and exercising. The first few times I did it, it was like a new window for me. You can actually, like, we're having quite an intense conversation because we're eyeballing each other. Yeah. But if we wanted to have a less intense conversation, we'd look that way and we'll go for a run. And you can share, and it's just it was a place where I started to practice talking freely about what might be going on. And I made connections through that with another mate called Dave, who was on the same pathway as me, just a few months behind. But more deeply than that, so I think the sense of community that you were speaking about before, active, fresh air, sunshine, all that kind of stuff, was all part of the answer. The thing I'm most grateful for running is that it brought out emotions in me. Like early on, when I go for a run on my own, I'd find myself crying. And, I told Karen about that. And it was kind of her response to me was that was one of the first times she'd really thought I was upset. Or, so I don't know how to describe it, but the act of going out and running on my own, it conjured up, not because I was doing something that's necessarily something particularly hard, it's just an easy run, but reflecting on the past made me feel incredibly emotional.
Do you choose, because I think that's very interesting, because I think to when I go for solo runs, for example, like, you're out there by yourself, maybe music, maybe not music, but you're lost in nature, you're lost kind of in your thoughts in a sense. Do you think, do you find you lean towards running part of a community to avoid that kind of feeling at all? Do you catch yourself that way, or do you still choose to go for solo runs on your own?
Yeah, I do both. I do both. So I go, maybe half my runs are on my own, and the other half are with people. So it still happens quite frequently. I say quite frequently, a few times a month, where you start to connect with actually how you're feeling, because those layers that you have are being stripped off you because you're you're exerting yourself. So you're kind of like peeling back the layers, and you think, okay, that's a nasty feeling. What's going on there, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's what I think I love about running. And again, the community, or just the art of running, is there is kind of more to it than that goal of being a fast runner, or the goal of it all being performance. I think for a lot of people, I don't even want to give it a percentage, but for a majority of people, it is that escape sometimes, and I think it's a great tool, really, that can be used to reflect. I think reflection is key, and you've mentioned it a few times, reflection, and how you've gone through it. And I just find that kind of an interesting point, because I think back to, again, me going through solo runs, and just randomly thoughts come up, random reflections over the years, and I don't know where it's come from, but it just kind of sometimes happens, really.
Now, lesson number 7 is one that comes from reflection, observation, and experience. A lesson I hope that resonates deeply with anyone listening. And that is that running an endurance sport is for everyone. First, let me say this: don't let social media intimidate you. The feeds we scroll through every day are full of people smashing PBs, running marathons, finishing ultras, or doing triathlons.
it's easy to feel behind or like you're not enough or that you have to match their performances. But the truth is, your journey is yours alone. And comparing yourself to anyone else only robs you of your experience. Running is not a competition against someone else's story. It's about your story. You don't need to run a marathon to be a runner. You don't need to finish a 50K ultra to call yourself an endurance athlete. And you absolutely do not need to compare yourself in this space of endurance sport. Every time you step out for a run, a ride, a swim, or any endurance activity, you're already doing the work, you're growing, and you're moving towards something meaningful. That is more important than any medal or finish line. And this brings me to something I see far too often in the running community, and that's the conversations that we have. So many of us, and I've been guilty of this myself, say and start a conversation by asking, "What time did you do? How fast did you run?" When really, we should be asking, "How did that run make you feel? What did you learn about that run? How did it go overall?" We need to stop downplaying our achievements as well by saying, "I just ran 5K today. I just ran 10K." That word just diminishes the effort and the discipline and courage it took to start and finish that run. Stop saying just. You did an amazing thing. Celebrate it. Recognize it. Because here's the ultimate lesson. Movement and endurance sport needs to be more than just an end goal. Finishing a race, hitting a certain pace, or achieving a PB is great, but if your only reason for moving is these kind of goals like, I need to hit this time, I need to hit a sub-3 marathon, you are going to be burning out way quicker and falling out of love with running or endurance sport way quicker than you could be. Life, training, and sport aren't just about the numbers, they're about meaning, reflection, and growth sometimes. So take a moment to find your reason for running, for cycling, or just training in general. Why do you do it? What does it give you that nothing else can? Clarity, stress relief, reflection, connection to others, or even just time for yourself? Whatever it is, protect that reason, nurture it, and let it guide every session. When you connect with your deeper purpose, every run, every ride, every swim becomes more than a workout. It becomes part of your life story. Because at the end of the day, the medals, the times, and the podiums don't define your journey. What defines your journey is showing up, putting in the effort, and reflecting on what you've learned and just moving with intention. It's growth that happens along the way, the lessons you take, and the way you let endurance sports shape your mind, your character, and your life. So if you only take one thing from today's episode, it's try to let it be this. Don't let comparison, intimidation, or fear rob you of your experience. Start where you are, move at your own pace, find your reason, and let that purpose fuel every step. Ask yourself, what did I learn about myself today? How did this make me stronger, both mentally or physically? And use that reflection because it is far more valuable than a finish line. Remember, the journey is richer, deeper, and far more rewarding than any medal or PB or PR could ever be.
So go out, move, and just experience endurance sport for yourself and this journey. Be proud of your achievements. Stop saying just. Celebrate every step, every mile, every session, because you're growing, you're learning, and you're discovering your reason to move. That, I think, is the ultimate lesson of endurance sport. It's not just for athletes, it's not just for the professionals, it's not just for marathon runners, it's not just for people that run at a super fast pace, but for anyone. It is for anyone willing to move, to grow, and to live intentionally. With that, I thank you for tuning into today's episode, and I will talk to you all in the next one.